Well, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to another live webinar for Jigglar, and my name is Aaron Shiner. Today, what we're going to be looking at is the brand new listing presentation. Having the right listing presentation or the wrong listing presentation can either make you or cost you literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Today, what I want to share with you is the brand new Jigglar listing presentation. And if you're not a Jigglar member, how you can become one for free quite easily. And if you are already a Jigglar member, how you can get your hands on this webinar, how you can get your hands on this listing presentation to customize it and use it in your own business today. The sole purpose of today's webinar is not just to show you how to edit the listing presentation. I think you're going to find that that's pretty self-explanatory as I start to get into it today. The main purpose of our session today is to actually give you the words, the scripts, and the dialogues to bring this listing presentation to life, to share with you the closing questions on specific pages, to share with you the strategy behind the listing presentation. And I guess what I mean by that is I want to give you like a director's cut, over the shoulder version of it. So not only am I going to share the dialogue that I'd be using for a client, I'm also going to tell you why I'm saying it and why I've positioned it in such a way. So why don't we just do this? I'm going to share my screen with you and we're just going to get straight into it. So where you're actually going to find the listing pres, I think this is probably the first place to start, how to actually track it down. It's in the new section. So you're going to scroll down a little bit and it's going to be under A4 landscape listing pres. So what I've gone ahead and already done is already saved a copy here. So I'm just going to go ahead into my Jiggles and I'm just going to open it up, right? So by the way, I should say, for full disclaimer, for today's session, our office is currently, our office is currently getting renovated at the moment. So there's like heaps of noise going on. So I'm actually just working from my home study today just because it's quieter. But here's the risk in working from the home study. About 3 weeks ago, I had the NBN connected. And if you're listening overseas or New Zealand or America or Canada, the NBN is just our national broadband network, which is basically just fiber cable. And it's absolutely terrible. I'd probably drop out 4, 5, 6 times a day. So if I drop out, all care, no responsibility, the NBN's just been dropping out nonstop. So fingers crossed it doesn't do it for the next 45 minutes. So with that being said, let's get into it. So this listing presentation is like 25, 26 pages long. And basically the presentation has a couple of key elements to it. Key element number one, it's designed to show the seller why you should be the preferred agent, not just by showing the seller what you think it's worth and how you market the property, but what your true points of difference are. Because here's what I know, anybody can sell a property. The difference that you have as a real estate agent is the ability to influence the buyers, the ability to influence the marketing, and the ability to negotiate the price. And this presentation helps demonstrate how you do that. So let me just get into it, right? I'm going to do some basic editing features. So if this is the first time you've ever even seen Jigglar and you're wondering what it is, Jigglar is basically having a graphic designer in your office without having to pay for a graphic designer. It allows you to easily modify and edit templates, and the template obviously we've created and loaded straight in for you is the listing pres in this example. So let me explain how this works, right? So for me, what you'd want to go ahead and do every single time where it says list your property with, listing your property with, What I like to do is sort of customize it just even a little bit more, in the sense, I'd even like to put the person's name that you're actually doing the presentation, for. So you can even, add to it and say, this presentation is for Mr. and Mrs. Smith from ABC Street, if you like. Where it says your suburb's most trusted opinion, you would actually go ahead and type in, your suburb. So they can clearly see, and obviously make the suburb that they're in. So Western Sydney's Mount Druitt's most trusted opinion, put in their person's name. And the reason you go, why would you do that? Because instead of then this just being a standard presentation that you do for everybody, this is a presentation they can actually see you've taken the time out of your day to customize it for them. People love their name being used. They will see that you've got a higher attention to detail than somebody coming in with, the generic presentation, if you will. So, change that and do a little bit of modifying. The great thing about this is, if this isn't on brand to your colors, it's very easy to quickly change it. Obviously, we've got all the different brands sort of loaded in. So you can quickly apply your color palette, and change it to suit, should you want, as well. And if you don't like that, you can always change it back as well with the undo button. So, but that's page one. So a little bit of an intro page. Let's move on to page two. And now this is really important. Now, I don't really mind if you're a one hit presenter or a 2-hit presenter. And what I mean by that, there's some agents that like to do the tour of the home, then go away, do some research, come back and present. Or you like to do the tour of the home and then present. Or some people like to present, then do the tour. I'm not here to change that part of your business. I'm not here to change what you're already doing. I'm just here to sort of add to what you're already doing. Regardless of how you present, here's what I know. If you're 1 hit, you're 2 hit, as soon as you've done the tour of the home, there's 2 things most sellers want to know at this point. How much do you think my house is worth? And how much are you going to charge me? Now, this is a really critical point of any meeting, because if you tell them how much you think the property is worth on the spot and how much you're going to charge them, basically anything you say after that, all they're thinking is this guy charges X and this is how much they think it's worth. I want to get a seller away from thinking about what's this agent going to cost me. And what I want them to be thinking is, how much can this agent make me? And that's a very different mind shift. That's a very different shift in thinking. And that's how I want it to happen. So this is the dialogue that I use. So I've done the tour of the home. They're now looking at me thinking, well, where to from here? I'll say this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you mind if we take a quick seat and we can go over a few things? You probably want to know what I think your property is worth. And they say, exactly. And they go, and probably the second thing you want to know is how much our commission is. And they say, that's right. I'd say, great. Can we discuss that now? And they look at me like in shock and amazement, like, you're actually going to discuss that. So I'd say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's a couple of things you probably want to know. How much I think the house is worth, and how much I'm going to charge. Can we discuss those things now? They say, great, that'd be great. I'd say, well, can we take a seat? Also, can we talk about how we actually negotiate on your behalf? And can we also talk about how we market your home? And can we also talk about the actual steps to getting your property from for sale to sold? And they say, sure. So I'd say, look, everything there is probably going to take about 30 minutes if that's okay. They say, sure, no problems. So now what I've actually got permission to do is a full-blown listing presentation, because we're going to talk about pricing, fees, marketing, negotiation, and the steps to getting sold. And that's basically what it is. So I really like this sheet for the simple fact, this is where you set the agenda and the pace and the tone for the meeting. Okay. So then I like to make a big attention grabbing headline sort of statement. And I'll say this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you know having the right real estate agent can either make or cost you thousands of dollars? In fact, the average gain in this area by selecting the right real estate agent could be as much as, insert price depending on your price range, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. Can I show you how we help you get a premium? Because here's what I know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's two types of price in any marketplace. There's what I call market price, which is the logical price. And then there is a premium price, which is achieved through an emotional buyer. Can I show you how we attract that emotional buyer? Really key dialogue on that page, right? And they say, sure. So you can see what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to move the seller from thinking about what's this agent going to cost me to, gee, how much can this agent potentially make me? I want to see if there was a profit and loss column in this transaction. I want to be in the profit column, not in the expenses column, so to speak. So that's why I have that sort of as my big attention grabbing headline. That's sort of like my positioning statement. Now, here's what I know. This next page is very important. And you can edit these. These aren't set in stone. But for me, this is critical. I like to have a positioning statement sort of up front and just say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is how I say it. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, first and foremost, I'd say thank you for the opportunity in inviting me in. Here's what I know. This is a commercial transaction, and as so, you've got the right and the option to choose any real estate agent that you like. I think as an agent, let's not hide the fact that they've got opportunity, and let's not hide the fact that they've got choice. Let's be really forthright about this. I'll always say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's what I know. You've got the possibility and the option to choose anybody, and I just appreciate you talking to me. I understand that this is a commercial transaction, and you've got to pick who you think is the best agent. And here's what I know. I'm going to do everything I can in my power to sort of demonstrate that to you today. So should you do, and I always like to use that key dialogue, should. Not too arrogant to say when you, if you, but should you decide to list your property with me, here's my commitment to you. First and foremost, I work for you as the seller. My obligation is to not help the buyer secure it for the lowest possible price. My job is to help you as the seller get the best price possible. So that's commitment number one. Commitment number two, our mission is to get you the highest possible price. But I'm actually not just going to tell you that. I'm actually going to show you how we do that. Next thing, we're going to be transparent and honest at all times, because here's what I know. In this transaction, I'm going to be your conduit to information. Because as your agent, should I be selected, I'm going to be marketing in a lot of different places, from internet to media to email to letterbox drops or everything in between. I'm going to be receiving information regardless if it's favorable or it's not. You're always going to hear the truth, because here's what I know. An informed seller will make an informed decision. The next thing we're going to do is deliver world-class communication. One of the biggest complaints about our industry is the lack of communication. So I'm going to show you today how we do things differently. And I guess one of the last commitments is we're going to promise a process and not a price. And what I mean by that is there's so many agents that will promise the world and they'll deliver an atlas. I love that dialogue. They'll promise the world and they'll deliver an atlas. I want to show you how we promise the process and not the price. And then also I want to show you some of the best marketing strategies on how we get you the best price possible. So that's our commitment to you, right? So that's roughly what I would say. And it's going to come out different each time, obviously, but that's a bit of a guide. So let me click over. Now, what I would like to share with you is the team, right? So this is where if you're on Rate My Agent, you go and put in your Rate My Agent stars or your Google reviews. Now, if you don't use Rate My Agent, it's as simple as sort of, selecting a couple of these things and clicking delete, so to speak. It's certainly not hard. And if you do make a mistake like that, you can just, and if you want to sort of center up these other ones, which I'm struggling to do, you just grab them with shift key, what I'm doing is just sort of shifting and just move them across with your arrows if you want to. But you might use it. I'm just showing you how to easily sort of change it if you like. Inserting photos is pretty simple. Click on that. Place image in shape. Give me a photo that can be used. Insert, and boom, swat, team photos go in there. So let me just show you that one more time. Click on that. Delete him. This is the key. Place image in shape. See that box up there? And it will automatically size it and place it into shape. There you go. Easy, right? So you just go and populate the different agents in your team. This is a little bit of copy. But, Rob, for me, the dialogue around these pages is this, right? So you've got your different sales agents, and we've got a couple of pages of sales agents. So if you've got more than one page, you can add. You got multiples, right? But then this is how we do it. It's pretty simple. Actually, let me try and answer a question that you may have. You might say, "But Aaron, we've got more than 12 people." That's simple. Just go and do this. Just delete all this up here, and just go and add more of these. So just copy, Control C, Control V, duplicate it, and then just paste it, so to speak, and just move him. But you get my point. Just make more spots for this sort of stuff. So, but I'm going to undo that because it looks a bit messy. So cool. All right. So we're back. So, but how do we sell our team? And the whole part of how do we sell our team, I'll say this, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's a lot of agencies out there that say they've got a big team and, when you list with them, you've got more salespeople working for you. I just want to just share a little bit of a difference. In our team, if I list the property, all my other agents are actually allowed to sell it. So you actually have a genuine team working for you. In a lot of agencies, the listing agent is the only one that's allowed to show buyers through. But in our office, if one of my agents has got a buyer that's prepared to pay more than my buyers, then they are encouraged to show it. So you have a genuine team working for you. So that's roughly how I would sort of say that. Now, one thing that qualifies us to sell real estate is testimonial. And I would say this, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, every real estate agent's going to come through and put their best foot forwards. I think the thing that's going to qualify us to sell real estate the most is the actual ability to see that we've actually sold real estate previously. So I just want to show you a couple of recent, case studies. I don't call them testimonials, so to speak, as much as I like to call it, this down here, when the seller says something nice, that's the testimonial, but the actual stats and the figures from the campaign, that's the case study. So this is where you would actually jump in and edit before you actually go out to make sure that the case studies are reflective of properties that are relevant to the property that you're going out to present on. So you want to make sure, call it like property. So if it's a like property or a same suburb, you want to go in there, right? It's as simple as, clicking an image up, if you want to upload a new image, be my guest. I'm just going to grab one of my stock ones, insert it, and you go and put the photo in. If you want to put an internal lounge room shot of that actual house, by all means, put it in there. But then this is just as simple as you presenting to the vendor and say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, here's some properties that I've sold recently in your area that are similar to yours, and actually go through it. It was on the market for 1.5 million, and we actually got full price for it. It was only on the market for 40 days. We had 14 groups of people through, and we had 4 offers that got made, and we had 200 web hits. Because here's what I want the vendor to be thinking. Maybe some of the people that inspected that property, maybe one of the 14 people or the 200 people that looked, or one of the 4 offers that got made, maybe some of those people could be interested in seeing my house. So I think very, very important, case studies in your listing presentation are absolutely critical. You don't need to have 20, but I think having a minimum of 2 or 3 is really important. So the next pages are basically identical. So pages 6, 7 and 8 are all the same, and that's where you go and put in your case studies. Please put them in. It's social proof, because it's sort of like there's a strategy in selling, and it's sort of like, this is Mike. Mike was successful. Be like Mike. It's it's follow the leader is what it's called. And basically having testimonials in your presentation is basically that. It's like, hey, here is a property that here is Mike. Mike just sold. Mike just sold with me. Mike got a great result. You also can be like Mike. It's a really powerful thing, as simple as it is. And it was interesting. I was on a coaching call, actually with a BDM. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and typically I do coaching with salespeople, but I also do a little bit of BDM coaching, because it's basically listing and selling just in property management. And it was funny. I was talking to Tim on our coaching call yesterday, and we were talking about having testimonials in a presentation. And Tim called me on it and said, Aaron, do you think testimonials are as relevant, or do you think testimonials still work, or are people cynical? And I said, you know what, really valid question, Tim. I said, no, I don't think testimonials work as well as they once did. I think people are more cynical in 2019. I think people are more cynical in 2020. I think people are more cynical in our day and age. And I think people question everything. So a testimonial, did your mum write it? Did your brother write it? And I think that's what, I won't say everybody thinks, but I think there's a percentage of people that think like that today. So for me, having the real life tidbits, which is like this part at the top in the white, brings it to life a lot more, because it's not just, here's an opinion of somebody. Did you write it and they sign it? Because that's just a matter of opinion. This here is fact. Like, these are the tangibles to the campaign, which I think hold the weight in social proof. So please start including some of that in your reviews. So to edit with Jigglar, to get to the additional pages, you just see this like slider bar, just drag that, right? So let's get on to page 9. Now, I really like this, because this is where this is sort of my marketing pod, and this is like the component where I start to talk about marketing, if you will. So I'm just trying to make it big enough so you can read the text on your screen too. Now, I really like this dialogue, and I can say this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I guess at this point, we've got 2 marketing options. I can show, and I'll say this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's the reality. I can show you a marketing plan. I can show you a marketing plan. Oh, excuse me. I can show you a marketing campaign that will get you on the market and help me win the business. Very specific dialogue. So I can show you a marketing plan that's going to get you on the market and help me win the business, or I can show you a marketing plan that's going to get you in the market and get your property sold. They are 2 very different marketing plans. Can I show you the difference? And the reason why I'm saying it like this here is because as well as I know, there's some agents that include marketing. There's some agents that do cheaper marketing. So if you are an agent that is charging and have a premium marketing package, you want them to see the value in how you do things. Because I'd say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this commercial decision, there's 2 different methods here. Some agents will come in and show you a marketing plan that is cheap and cheerful and looks very attractive and helps them win the business and get your signature. I prefer to show you a marketing plan that's actually going to position your property in the market and actually get you sold. They're 2 very different plans. Let me show you how we do this, right? And this is part of your presentation where you do different marketing to me, but this is where you're going to go through and show them some of your examples where you're going to now pull out of your kit how you advertise on the internet. Are you Premier all or Highlight all, or are you Feature? Are you doing half page, quarter pages, full pages in the papers? This is where you show your marketing prowess. This is where you show your marketing skills, right? So you start to show them some of those examples and you put them in their hands, right? But then this is what I say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we have a buying community out there, and we need to make sure we explore all avenues. So this is where I start to show a seller where we actually qualify buyers. So I'd say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're gonna have qualified buyers that have already been looking through past properties, through recent properties, and I like to call them like properties. I'd say, so we've already got a buyer pool that we can call on from like properties, which just basically means similar properties, right? And I'd say, and here's the really cool thing, we can actually use, and this is key dialogue, we can actually use the momentum from those campaigns, and now that those properties have sold, we can put that momentum onto your property. People like to feel like we can already hit the ground running. So we've already got qualified purchasers. We'll also have returning clients, people that are either upgrading or downsizing and trading in. We've also got a very active investor list. Obviously, today's tenant becomes tomorrow's buyer. So we also like to notify our tenants about new properties. Obviously, we have our social media sort of audience where we're going to do Facebook Live posts, or we're going to post our property, our virtual tour videos, or our just listed alerts on social media. Our website, and you'll talk about your own, company website. Then you'll talk about the real estate portals, whatever ones you're on, and then the local community in as well. You'll talk about Google if you advertise on Google. But here's the reality: the buying community is not set in stone, guys. The buying community is what you make it. The buying community is designed to be the community where you find the buyers. So you can add to that community or you can subtract from it. But I'm just giving you a bit of a guideline where most agents sort of find their buyers, right? Then we talk about our direct buying tools. And our direct buying tools are things like this. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, should you decide to list with me and activate my services, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to our database via email. And I can say this, I really like this dialogue. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's two types of agents out there, and there's two types of marketing. The first type of marketing is what I call hope marketing. And what I mean by hope marketing is this is what 99% of agents do. They put it on the internet. They put it in the paper or magazine. They put a signboard on it. And then they sit back, they cross their fingers, and they hope a buyer comes. I don't want to rely solely on hope marketing. I really want to drill down to some strategic marketing and some proactive marketing. And part of that for me is around my email database, because in my database, I have over 5,000 buyers subscribed to that list. And I'm going to send out an email alert about your property. And because I use a database called Locked On, it will tell me exactly how many people opened that email. That will tell me how many people clicked to view your property, and it will even tell me how many times they clicked on it. And the reason why that's really important is we know the people that opened it and the people that clicked on it are more qualified than the balance of people who didn't open it or didn't click on it. So for me, I'm not just going to know who clicked on it. I'm actually going to be proactive for you. I'm going to jump on the phone and I'm actually going to invite those people who clicked to view it online to the open house. I'm going to SMS them. I'm going to re-email them. So I'm going to leave nothing to chance. So part of our strategy is engaging our hot buyers on email. We're also going to do Facebook posts via video and via photo. We've got buyer brochures, which I'll show you shortly. I'm going to do some open homes. I might even do some just listed invites. And should you be going to auction, we'll even do auction invites as well, right? So that, and again, you can change these. These aren't set in stone. It's not a tree. If you don't like them, you can change them. You can move. But the reality is you put in your buying tools there. And this is where you'd actually show them. Don't just tell them, show them. You'd show them a Facebook post. You would show them an example of your stats from your database. So this is where you'd actually say, look, here's a campaign I recently did. It went out to 2,000 people. 500 of them opened it. 100 of them clicked, and then I SMS'd them. So show them that stuff, right? Show them what a just listed invitation looks like in your business. So these are some tangibles. So then I show them, an example of how to present your property for sale. So I'll talk about having professional photos. versus standard photos. Now you can see here, this photo on the right is very slick. And then this one, in all honesty, complete confession, I actually took that photo of a house in one of the houses I listed as a case study, maybe 10 years ago. I've sort of kept it for nostalgia because, you know, a difference a professional photography makes is sort of chalk and cheese. So I sort of say, you know, we've got to make sure a picture tells 1,000 words. So we've got to make sure it's spectacular in many ways. So I just talk about the benefits of having a professional photographer, because I'll just say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's the truth. I'm not a professional photographer. I'm a professional real estate agent. I can't do what they can do. Your photos are the window to your marketing at every single step, regardless if it's, you know, the photos are used on the signboard, the photos are used on the internet, they're used in the paper, the magazines, the just listeds, the buy brochures. It doesn't matter where we advertise, the photos are always on display. So let's make sure we get really good photos. And that's where you'd start to talk about things like, well, what photos do you want in the marketing? Great question. Like what do you want to be the hero shot? And they'll say, I just had the kitchen redone. I want the kitchen. Or they say things like, oh no, I prefer the front yard than the backyard. Great. And then I'd start using like trial closes in the press. And I'd say, like, you know, is there a preferred, preferred day that you'd like a photographer out here? Oh, we'd have to get a few things done, but maybe next Tuesday. Great. Morning or afternoon? Like when's it best for the sun? Oh, morning. Well, how about Tuesday at 10 o'clock? That'd be great. So I'm getting some small commitments on bigger decisions, right? So that's how I'm doing that. And then we talk about my actual buyer brochure. Now, within Jigglar itself, in my opinion, we have the best buyer brochures on the planet. I've never seen a brochure that is better than this one. We have an 8-page brochure. We have a 16-page brochure. We also have your traditional 1 and 2 and 4-page brochures. But this is a buyer brochure is not just to help sell the property. A quality buyer brochure is also there to help you win the listing. It's a listing tool as well. And what I mean by that is, you think about it. Most property brochures that we have in our industry are 1, 2, maybe 4 pages long. And we may be talking about a $300,000 to $2 million, $10 million house. Yet you go out and buy you go out and look for a brand new car, call it anywhere from 50 to 80,000 on average. The brochure for that car is glossy, it's thick, it's quality, it smells great. So you've got like this high-end brochure for a $50,000 car, yet we've got a 1 or 2 page in-house printed job for a $500,000 property. It just doesn't make sense for me. So one of the big points of difference in a listing presentation is showing them. You know, there's an old saying, don't tell me, show me. And I love to show people how we do our brochures different. I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, everybody does marketing. This is how we do it better. And I go FUD. And when I say FUD, like the buyer brochure within Jigglar has thud factor. So what I mean by thud factor, this is just my exercise book, but it goes, you put it on the table and hopefully you could hear that it makes noise. It doesn't do that with a 2-page brochure. This is where you can actually show them the buyer brochure. And if you're wondering what it looks like, you can go into Jigglar. There's an 8 and a 16-page one. They are so comprehensive. The vendors will be absolutely blown away. You might say, well, Aaron, let me just answer the questions. How much do they cost to print? Well, that's depending on your printing, but I've had them printed, the 16-page ones. I get them in matte, not gloss. I like a nice matte finish, like almost powder coat, for about $2.50 to $2.75 a unit, right? So, and I order 50 at a time, and that's obviously part of the investment in the vendor contribution. And you go, well, hang on, if we don't have 50 people come to the property, well, what do you do with the balance of them? Do you throw them out? No, of course not. Let's just say you use 20 through the campaign. and you've got 30 left over. Well, you hand out some for free at the next listing presentation, obviously, that you go to. And then what you also do is use them as part of your just solds, your just sold letterbox drop, around the property when it sells. So then people, when I say people, the neighbours can see the type of quality letterbox drop that you do as well. So that's how you sort of use surplus, if you're wondering. But please, on a side note, go in and check that out. But this is where you show them how you're different with your buyer sort of booklet, right? But within it, I like to talk about our inspection. So I'll say, like a really good open home creates competition. Competition creates a premium price. And then I say this, like the best results are achieved in a private inspection. So what we'll do after we create competition through an open, then we'll bring our buyers through privately. And the example I like to use is sort of like poker. And I'd say at an open house, if we're trying to negotiate, everybody's playing with their cards face up. Everybody knows what the other person has because they might overhear the conversation. So I don't typically like to negotiate in an open forum. I much prefer to negotiate in a private forum, because now it's like poker in the sense no one else knows what the other player has. So they don't know where the other buyers are at. So if they want the property, we invite them to put their best offer forward in the risk of being outbidded. So I like to talk about, bringing buyers back through on a second inspection in a private setting. I think that's really important. Now, if you don't do that, you can change it. Then you'll talk about window display. And if you look, some of you go, window display, that's so yesterday. Fine, you don't have to have it. Put something else there. But if you still are rocking a window display, you put in the benefits of having a window display. You know what I say to people? I say this. I'd say, what's interesting about a window display? Go back a decade ago, 15 years ago, a window display was the internet. That's where people had to actually come and have a look. Now they can do it on their phone or on their computer. That makes it so accessible. So here's what I know. If somebody is actually coming to check out your property in the window, I know that they are serious. So if I see people out in the window display, I'm actually going to approach them. You can include it. You don't have to. But I think, window display selling is more of a lost art these days because fewer and fewer people are talking about it. Then we talk about sort of method of sale. Now, this is where you'd put in your methods. You might be by tender. I've just put in the two, I guess, most common, private treaty, which is for sale, and for auction. So we just talk about the different methods, right? Private treaty is the most common method, but then we just talk about how an actual private treaty works. Nominating an asking price. I'm not going to go through that. You know how to present that page, and I'm not going to read the bullet points. But this is what I will share with you. Always ask the seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is there a method that you prefer? Ask them. Because if you go in pitching auction and they're dead against it, your chances of winning the business drastically dropped. Because here's what I know. 9 times out of 10, a seller will tell you what they don't want. So I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, have you thought about the method you would prefer? For sale or for auction? I don't call it private treaty. I like just to call it for sale because they understand that. I'd say, is it for sale or for auction? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say this, oh, look, Aaron, I don't really want auction. They'll typically tell you what they don't like. Very rarely do they tell you what they do like. But ask the question, right? Very important. Then over the page. Now, this is where we start to get the pricing. And this gets a little bit more important and a little bit more nitty gritty, right? I'm just going to move that line down. Ooh, move that line down. There we go. Just get that into place. And with pricing, I'll say this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and I'll have a little joke with them. Now, at this point, right, this is where you would start to pull out your comparable sales. This is where you'd pull out your CMA. And this is where you'd start to pull out your, your evidence, if you will, on what you think it's worth. So you've got your pricing with you, and you can say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's what I know. Having the right price at the start of your campaign is absolutely critical to the success, because here's what it looks like. If we price it too low, we're going to be at a bargain price and there's going to be a million buyers that want it. But I'll say this, but here's the reality. That's not what we're here for, because I'd say real estate isn't like a retail setting where if we're selling computers and we've sold out, we can ring the factory. We can say send 20 more and they show up. Your house has no, and this is the key dialogue, your house has no recommended retail price. Your house is worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. My job is not to find out what 20 buyers are willing to pay for it, but my job is to find out what that one premium buyer is willing to pay for it. I'll have a little joke here and I'll say this. I'm a lot like John West. What you're paying me to do is reject the rest and only bring you the best. So if we price it too low, yes, we'll have a sale, but we're going to probably, we won't have a second chance of getting a premium. So we don't want to be in the bargain price. Then there's fewer buyers around the logical market price. And the logical market price is based on comparable sales, facts and figures, what the property is actually worth. And there's going to be some buyers there, but that's not who I'm also attracting either. I'm not looking to sell it for the logical price. You could probably do that yourself. Who I'm trying to search for is that emotional buyer. I'm not trying to sell it to 5 people now. I'm only trying to sell it to 1. See, I'm not trying to sell it to 20 people in the bargain price. I'm not trying to sell it to 5 people at the logical price. I'm trying to sell it to the one who's prepared to pay that premium. And what I call that is the heart buyer, the person who falls in love with the home and is emotionally attached to it. And that's why we do marketing, because here's what I know. Could I sell it to somebody on my database? Yes. But doing all this marketing is like insurance. It ensures that we leave no money on the table. And when I come and present offers to you, I can look you in the eye and say, this is the best price possible because I've explored all avenues. Really key dialogue, right? So you'll talk about what the emotional price looks like. By the way, I might pause for a second, because how are we going so far, guys? Are we getting some value out of this? Just raise that little hand icon if we're getting some value out of this. Fantastic. Lots of hands going up. Great to see. That's awesome. Is there some things here that and again, I'm not here to change your business, guys. I'm here just to add to what you're already doing. If there's some things that you can take away from this, be my guest. But actually, I'm going to ask another question. Hands up. Just raise your hands if you've never been on one of my webinars ever. This is like the very first webinar you've ever done. Wow, wow, really? That many? Okay. What I probably should have said was, this isn't like a designer. I'm not a designer. I'm a real estate agent like you guys. Like, this is the type of presentation that I use to list over 200 properties a year, 3 years in a row, right? This isn't, I'm not when we talk about Jigglar, it's a design software. I'm a real estate agent. I've been a real estate agent for, 18 years. Now, I can hear the joke. I can't see you. Yes, I'm 37. Yes, I know I look younger. But but basically my whole adult life, that's all I did was go out and list and sell properties. So this isn't like us sitting here with a textbook saying, oh shit, this is what would look good in the real life. These are stuff that I've done time and time again. The dialogue that I'm using, I've done literally thousands and thousands of times. Yes, my presentation has looked different and has evolved through the years. But the whole simple fact of me having the ability to present and knowing what dialogue works with what page is proven and tested, because I've done it till I can do it in my sleep, I think. So anyway, back onto this. Page 18. So we've got, I think, like 25 pages. So we're towards the tail end now. But this is now where you've had the conversation about price. And look, with price, some vendors are happy with your price. Some vendors aren't. You're never going to fix that. Or you say, did you have an opinion of what you think your house is worth? Oh, I've got no idea. And then you tell them, and then they frown and say, oh, I thought I would have liked a bit more for it. We've all had that happen to us, right? So getting the right price. I love this specific slide. This is probably my favorite slide through the whole presentation. I'll say this to a seller, and this is not written anywhere, but I'll say this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right now, you have an expectation for what you would like for your home. And right now, I have an opinion of what I think it's worth. And that's all we really have to go off right now. But in about 2 weeks' time, my opinion of what I think it's worth and your expectation are gonna mean very little, because what we're actually going to have is evidence and feedback. Because here's what I know: every property. This is how I sell it, right? I say every property fits into 3 categories. If we're getting no inspections and no offers, what that tells us is the market has seen it. These are very deliberate words. The market has seen it. They've seen it on the internet. They've seen it in the magazine. They got your email. They've seen it. Keyword seen it. But they've chosen not to inspect. So what that means is it didn't even make the top 20. So if we're getting no inspections and no offers, typically what that tells us is we're probably 10% over what the market actually thinks the property's worth. If we're getting some inspections and no offers, what that means is people have seen it in the marketing, they've seen it on the net, they've seen it in the magazines, and they're choosing to inspect. But if we're not getting any offers, what that realistically means is it made the top 20, but it didn't make the top 3. And I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is probably the most dangerous category to be in, because to you, you're getting activity, you're getting inspections, and you think, well, it will sell. But actually, what's actually happening is we're very much acting like a pinball. Buyers are coming into your property and bouncing off your property and actually buying other properties. So the simple fact is, if we're getting some inspections and no offers, it simply means we're actually helping your competitors sell. And I would say about 80% of the time, a vendor says this: I don't want that to happen. I want to actually help us sell our house. So I'd say, so if that happens, it means we are close, but it probably means we're about 5% over where we need to be. Then if we are getting multiple inspections and multiple offers, what that means is people have seen it on the net, it made the top 20, and it made the top 3. So right now, at day 1, I've got an opinion of what I think it's worth, and you've got an expectation. But in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, what we'll actually have is feedback. So what I would like to do with you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is actually have this conversation with you again in a couple of weeks to see exactly what category we fit into. E.g., we've already set up our first price reduction without ever having to say price reduction if it needs it. Here's the reality. If we're getting heaps of inspections and heaps of buyers, well, it's going to sell. You're not going to need that conversation. But what I really like about this slide and what I really like about this graph is in 2 or 3 weeks' time, if you don't do this, so let me word this correctly. If you don't do this and you go for a price reduction, the vendor feels like it's a bait and switch. And what I mean by bait and switch is you never discussed this with me. I never knew about this. You're this nice person at the listing presentation and now you're being a bully. Or they turn around and say this: but it's only been a few weeks. We've had nobody come through it yet. So can we just give it a couple more weeks? See, now they can actually understand. See the key words. People have seen it. They've chosen not to inspect it. So they can't say, oh, no one's seen it yet. Yeah, they've seen it. There's been 400 web hits. 300 people have opened the emails. They've seen it. They're just choosing not to inspect, and there's a big difference. People have seen it. So that's why I really like this slide where it is after price, right? Because this is what I'll say. Very rarely do we always see eye to eye on price with a seller. So, when we are talking about price, and maybe I forgot this dialogue, but I'll say something like this: like, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you've got an expectation, I've got an opinion, but here's the reality. If we were reading from a book, we're in the same book. We're probably even in the same chapter. We're probably even on the same page. You're probably at the top of the page and I'm probably towards the middle or the bottom of the page, but we're close. So we're close enough that we can work this out and get it started, right? So I'll never lose a listing over if they're within 10% of value. Let the process will tell you if it's on track or off track. But then I'll talk about, we get our best offers in the first few weeks, right? So I'm just going to sort of zoom in on this a little bit more. Oops, sorry. So I'll talk about, you get your best offers in the first few weeks. So I talk about first offer syndrome, rejecting those early offers. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and this is how I sort of sell. I'm just conscious of our time. And obviously, I should say this, in real life, This takes way shorter because what I'm doing is I'm sharing the dialogue, then I'm sharing why I'm sharing it and how I'm sharing it. So it's probably, at this point, I'm probably about 30 minutes actually into the press. What I am going to do just quickly, I can see some questions coming in. Let me, great, thank you. You're an old face, has many worn lines on it. Thank you, Craig. Look like a worn roadmap. Good to see you, Craig. I haven't seen you on a call for a little while, so good to see you. Need to swap text on the graph, so I'm sure you would do that anyway. Yeah, so this is the great thing about Jigglar, Peter. You can change any of this. So you can change the whole thing if you wanted to. We're giving it to you the way we think it should be. Then you can change it, and that's the beauty about Jigglar. You can change it in real time as quickly and as easily as you want it, which is why it's been used now in here you go. The text under the last two is reversed. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so that both of you said the same thing. So there's the typo. Thank you. But yeah, the good thing is we can fix it. So anyway, back onto this. So I'll say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's what's going to happen. When we first list your property, what I'm going to do, actually, on a side note, good to see you guys are all paying attention, pulling me up on it, which is awesome. But this is what I'll say, back on track. I'll say this, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what's going to happen in the first few weeks is I'm actually going to call my hottest buyers to inspect the property. I'm going to call the buyers that I've been working with the most. I'm going to call the buyers who I feel are best qualified to buy your property. So what's going to happen in the first few weeks is I use this dialogue. I'm going to hypermarket your property. And what hypermarketing means is it doesn't matter if they're looking online, offline, if they're active buyers or passive buyers or proactive buyers. I'm going to make sure they find it. And what that means is it doesn't matter where they look, they're going to see it. And what that's going to do is actually generate a lot of interest in the first few weeks. So you're going to see a real increase in buyer activity, and you're actually going to get some really good offers early. Through your campaign. And some of those early offers, you might say, wow, they're great, but can we wait for more? Typically what I will say is this: offers actually very rarely go up after the first few weeks. They typically go down. So please be aware that you get your best offers early. So you just want to make them, and I call it first offer syndrome. We've had it in the past, Mr. and Mr. Seller, where vendors have rejected really good offers early, only to call me 3 or 4 weeks later to say, is that buyer still there? And to disappoint that seller, to inform them that the buyer had already bought and then they've subsequently sold for less money. I want to make sure you don't make those same mistakes, and that's why I'm sharing with you that we get our best offers sort of early on. Then we talk about advantages of proper pricing. So I'll just zoom in on this one a bit more. So I would say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, always sellers have a higher expectation and opinion of what they like for it. A buyer will always have a lower opinion of what it's worth. My job as an agent is to get you the premium end of market value. The bank valuer's job is to be conservative. So I'd say, but when we price it correctly, here's the benefits. You get a faster sale, you get less inconvenience. So without, heaps of people coming through your home, you get increased response from the sales team. It means more money for you, because ultimately what happens when it's priced better, you get more competition. You get better response from your marketing. Finance actually gets approved, because I think that's a big one where we are today. Is I'd say it doesn't matter. Like sometimes vendors want like huge money for a property, right? I can say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'd love to get that for you, but here's the reality: 99% of the transactions we do are done with finance. Even if I could get the buyer to agree to it, they're going to send the valuer out, and the valuer isn't going to approve it because they're looking on logical facts and figures on pricing. So we talk about, when we price it right, the actual finance gets approved. Pricing right, attracts higher offers and avoids being shop worn, which is basically a pinball listing, bouncing from yours, jumping onto others, right? So we talk about advantages of proper pricing. Now we talk about really important things like negotiation. So I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what's really interesting about real estate agents? There's two things that before you select any real estate agent, including me, they've got to have the ability to do two things. They've got to have the ability to be able to professionally market your property, and they've got to have the ability to negotiate. Every single real estate agent that you meet will show you how they market it. Very few real estate agents will actually show you how they negotiate. I would like to show you that now. So what I mean by that, guys, is to actually do a real live negotiation role play. Because I'll say this as a positioning statement, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, most real estate agents aren't actually negotiating. They're actually just really expensive couriers. What I mean by that is they get an offer from a buyer, then they take that to you, then they get a counter offer from you, then they take that to the buyer. And if that's all the agent's doing, you may as well call a meeting with both yourself as the seller and as the buyer. Ask what sort of tea and coffee you like, how you like it. Tell them where each other are at and say, this is where you're at. Make a deal. Tell me how much to put on the contract, because that would be a better outcome. And I'd say reality is this. You hire, most 99% of sellers will hire a real estate agent without ever knowing if that agent has the ability to negotiate, because we all just look at how they market. I want to show you the actual steps on how we negotiate. And now you'll negotiate different to me. That's not the point here. The point is that in the listing presentation, you actually go through and do a role play with that seller and actually negotiate as you would with a buyer. So I'm just going to see, would anyone like me to go through my quick initial negotiation sort of pod so you can grab some of that dialogue? Okay. A lot of hands there. All right, I will do it then. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to or not, but I'll do it because there's a lot of hands there. All right. So let me do it. I've got a question too before I start. No, I don't. I've already answered that question. Cool. Chat maybe. Yes, thank you. You're welcome. All right. So let me go through it. And this is what I'll say. I'm going to give you the short version because I'm cautious of our time. I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's the first mistake most real estate agents make when negotiating. When a buyer actually makes an offer, we've got to acknowledge that offer. And typically the way an agent will acknowledge the offer is by saying, thanks for the offer. But here's the thing, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I never want to thank the buyer for making an offer, because the word thank you, if you look that up in the dictionary, if I say thank you, it implies that you've done something good for me. And I don't ever want the buyer feeling like they've done something good for me as the agent, or they've done something good for you as the seller. They're not doing us a favor by making an offer. I will never say thank you, but I understand we have to acknowledge the offer. So how I acknowledge an offer is by doing this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I'll never say thank you like every other agent in the marketplace. I'll actually congratulate them. And I'll say this, congratulations on making a starting offer. See what I said, a starting offer? I'd say congratulations on making a starting offer. You've got a great eye. There was a few other people that were looking at this property, but I'm glad you got in first. Everybody wants to feel like they're getting a good deal. Everybody wants to feel special. And you think about it, how many times do we get congratulated? And the answer is not many. We get married, we have a kid, we buy a house, we win sporting event, or we graduate or do something. So I'll never thank a buyer. I'll always congratulate them. So the first step in all my negotiation is congratulations. That's a great starting offer. You've got a really good eye. I'm glad you could see what I can see in this house. There's a few other people that are sniffing around. I'm glad you got in first. Let me do the cliche, or let me do the complete backflip. Thank God you bought this house. I haven't been able to sell it. It's been on the market for ages. The vendor was going to sack me. Thank God that you've come and made an offer. It's very, I'm showing you the polar different to that, right? But that's what I'm trying to say. Congratulations, you got a great eye. Just reassuring, because there is a thing called buyer's remorse, and it's very real. When a buyer makes an offer, they automatically think, have I made the right decision? So congratulating them just reassures them. Then I would say this, that is a great starting offer. Then I'd say, if that offer wasn't to be accepted, what would be your next best offer? And then we know, you know as well as I know, when I say congratulations, that's a great starting offer. If that offer wasn't to be accepted, what would be your next best offer? A lot of people say, can you just see what the owner says? And I'd actually say this to the vendor. I'd say, so a lot of agents may even ask, what would be your next best offer? And 9 out of 10 buyers say this to us, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, can you just see what the owner says first and then come back to us? And I'd say this to a seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is now the moment of truth. A sale is being made right now, regardless if the agent is aware of it or not. And what I mean by that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is the buyer is selling the agent on why they're in charge, or the agent is going to sell the buyer on why they're in charge. But this is going to be the difference between possibly getting you an extra $10, $15, or $20,000. Because here's what I know. The premium price that we help you get doesn't come at the end of the negotiation. It comes at the start of the negotiation. Having, the ability of your agent to pull out money early is the key to this, to getting you a better price. Because after a while, after we've counted a few times, buyers say, well, I've come up too much, the seller hasn't come down. So the ability to get them to increase quickly is the key. So this is what I'm going to say to them. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if that offer wasn't to be accepted, what would be your next best offer? And they're going to say, can you just try it? And then I'm going to say something like this. Look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look, I can try it, but at that price level, it has already been tested and has been rejected. That's why I was asking, what would be your next best offer? Now, a small percentage of people will actually increase off that dialogue, but then there's still going to be a percentage of people, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that still say, can you just see what they say? Well, this is step 5. This is the moment of truth. And I'll say this. Look, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, by law, I actually have to submit your offer. But I've got a really good relationship with this seller. And they're going to look me dead in the eyes and they're going to ask me, what do I think? And I'm actually going to advise that seller not to take it, because I believe the property is worth more than what you've offered. And in fact, I valued it at higher than what you've offered it. So right now, the seller is not your stepping stone. I am. But I would like to help you buy the property. That's why I'm asking, what would be your next best offer? Right. Little bit of negotiating. We could do this all day. Then we can talk about the countering. And I would, if I was about to, I know that these people are coming on the market. I'd go around and how we're going to now counter the buyer in percentage, not in dollars. So I'm going to say we're at Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we're only 3% away or only 2% away. Things like that. So that's a part of my negotiation process. So hopefully I gave you like the absolute crash course in that, but hopefully you get the point. Have some real solid dialogue around your negotiating. All right. Then we talk about world-class communication. And we'll talk about how you actually communicate. And this is what you will do, right? You'll put in, if you've got vendor login or your weekly reports, what's your commitment? Are you going to SMS them or call them after every inspection? How are you going to communicate? This is where your job, your responsibility is to sort of fill in how you communicate with them. Then I really like this page, 10 reasons why people choose me. And I really like this as sort of a reinforcing, repositioning statement. This is your job to fill this in, right? I can't write these for you. I've done my best to sort of fill in and be generic as possible, but you would fill in the 10 reasons why people choose you. You're eager, you're energetic, you're a business owner, you're a leading salesperson, you get coaching, whatever it is. Andrew, I can see you on there, right? So if I'm sitting in your shoes, Andrew, one of the things that I would say, if I'm talking, obviously, full disclaimer, Andrew does coaching with me. Andrew, one of the things that I'd say if I was you is I get coaching from some of the industry's best, where a lot of other agents might have had 10 years experience. All they're doing is repeating what they've learned in year one over and over again. I'm constantly learning, getting coaching to ultimately help you get a better end price. So that would be one of the things. Tell people if you are proactive in your approach, tell them why they should choose you. But fill in your top 10 reasons why they should choose you. Then you talk about the fee. You talk about your fees and charges. And again, I always like to ask the question, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you want me to tell you a fee that's going to help me win the business? Or do you want me to tell you a fee that's actually going to help me go about doing my job professionally and get you the best result? They're two different fees. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is today about winning a negotiation on fees, or is today about hiring the very best agent? Because they're two different things. So there's some dialogue there that you can use. And then over the page, let's get started. I really like this page, right? This is where we put in some nice subtle closes. I love this close. Can I have your permission to start telling buyers about your property? Are you comfortable with our marketing strategy? Are you comfortable with the price? Are you comfortable with me handling your sale? And are you ready to put me to work? So I like having some closes. This is like your 30 seconds of courage, guys. This is where you put on your bulletproof vest of courage. And that last slide, you ask for the business. So there you have it. That is the listing presentation sort of in a nutshell. Now, if you don't like some of these images, it's not hard to delete them. I just click delete, by the way, if you're wondering why it went black. And you can just go ahead and simply add images from your library or upload images. You can change the colors to your corporate colors. You can change the font size. You can change the text. You can change whatever you like, right? This is fully editable. After you've got it the way you like it, you just click save, right? So I've just clicked save. And then you're simply going to click download. And it will ask you, do you want it as a JPEG? Now you go, why would you want it as JPEGs? Well, you might want to put it on your computer as a PowerPoint, or you might want to put it on your iPad as Keynote. Save it as JPEG. If you want to get these, printed out and take it with you physically, have a tangible copy, save it as a PDF. You might want to go all out and get these professionally printed. Well, then you would do commercial printing option, and it will give you the crop marks with the bleed to edge. So you've got a digital solution through JPEG, a printable in-house solution through PDF, and a commercial printing solution through crop marks, right? So I'm just going to do the PDF version. It's a pretty big file, obviously, because it's 25 pages, so it's saving and downloading. I hope my internet holds up and you can still hear me. But what it will end up doing is saving it. So here's what I know, guys. If you're already a Jigglar member, by all means, where to find it is just in the new category, which is just on the homepage. So if you want to know where to find this quickly and easily, just here on the new star, just jump straight in, scroll down. There it is there. Click on it. Before you start editing it, always save. So save your, I'll just call it listing pres 2. So you got the saved, and then once you've got it saved, you just jump straight in and start editing. Now, if you've got no idea what actually Jigglar is basically all my best templates, all the best templates, not just mine, there's heaps of other templates, but all, great prospecting templates. There's obviously the listing kit, there's pre-listing kits, there's even things to give after the appraisal. So there's so many resources in there, from DL flyers to social media posts to buyer brochures, you name it, it's in there. It's free to create an account. For 30 days, you got free access to it. After that, it's $39 US a month. Now, here's the reality. You might say, no, I don't want to have Jigglar. That's fine. You could literally create a free account today. You could create a free account today, jump in, generate my listing kit and a heap of other stuff, and leave and never have to pay for it. Now, here's the reality. I actually charge $5,000 to build. If I was to build you a custom listing kit, my fee is $5,000 to do that. That's not including graphic design. Graphic design's on top, and that will run anywhere between, and that's not with me, but a graphic designer, anywhere between sort of $2,500 to $5,000 in graphic design if you do it onshore. So you're talking, for something that looks like what we've just gone through, you're looking at anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000. Here it is, sitting in there waiting for you, ready to use it. So please jump in, grab it. If you want to, if you want to know how to sign up for a Jigglar account, it's pretty simple. I'll just log out. I'm just going to go to, this is where you go, guys, jigglar.com. And then just go get started for free. Click on that button and get started, and you too can have my listing presentation. If you're already a Jigglar user, jump in and edit it now.